I am joined today by Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella, who has a new book out titled Hit Refresh. Satya, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. So you are the third CEO in Microsoft's 40-year history. What advice did Steve Ballmer or Bill Gates have for you when you took over?
One of the best pieces of advice I've ever gotten was from Steve, which was be bold, be right. And it was a great metaphor because he said, look, if you're not bold, you're not going to do anything big. And if you're not right, you're not going to be alive. So therefore, in some sense, be bold, be right. And I think it captures the essence of leadership.
And when you took over, there was still some infighting in Microsoft's divisions, and you, in the book, allude to the old organization chart with the guns all pointing at the different divisions. How did you change that, and how do you manage a company of 100,000 people?
One of the things I write about in the book is when you're successful as an organization, what happens is you get this virtuous cycle between the product or the concept that's a hit, the capability you have as an organization, and your culture, right? Really, all three of them are in this beautiful virtuous lock. But then, what happens with any great success? It tapers off. You need a new concept. You need a new growth vector. That needs new capability. And that's where culture becomes important, because you can't be beholden to your past, but your culture needs to let go of the past and invent new things. And for us at Microsoft, we quite frankly have gotten it more right than wrong. I mean, there's no way we would be sitting here 43 years into our existence competing with a whole set of new people who were not there when we were started. If we had not done that. It was recapturing that, having grown up inside the company for 25 years. I've observed when are the times we've gotten it right, when will we be able to break free of our past habits so that we can invent new things. And that's what we really try to do.
Can you give a couple examples of the times you looked at in the past to guide you into the future?
I joined Microsoft in 1992. When we were just beginning Windows NT, and ultimately became even our server business and our client-server participation, and you can trace it straight line to our cloud. But when I joined the company, most people thought that there was no way Microsoft, the PC company, can ever build a server or succeed in the server business. But we persisted. We changed. We, in fact, brought lots of new people, including people like me, into the company. We grew new capability. We went after this new market called the data center and changed the rules. So to me, that was a great way to learn what we are capable of in terms of really building both a new culture, a new capability, and a new concept.
How do you manage your time? How do you answer every email? How do you keep your day going? How do you stay productive?
I mean, one of the things that I've definitely come to realize as a CEO is what a multi-constituent job it is. In other words, it's not just about customers or partners or shareholders or employees or governments. It's about all of them all the time. And so that thing about trying to say, well, let's compartmentalize it and let's try and plan and schedule each one to high precision is probably not going to work because it's dynamic. So that's where I think what matters, at least what I'm learning matters, is judgment. And there's a temporal nature to it. Right now I'm on the road. I'm spending time with some customers and media. And obviously, in the coming weeks, I'll probably spend more time on the products and engineering, and the ability to figure out how to balance things out so that you're in touch with the multi-constituent world is what I think a CEO or pretty much any leader in today's fast-changing world has to do.
You give an anecdote in the book about when you were here and you're trying to get your wife to come to America, you had a green card and you were encouraged to actually go back to an H-1B visa to bring her to the country. Can you talk a little bit about that?
And one of the things that I always say is I'm a product of two amazing American things, which is both American technology reaching me where I was growing up and the enlightened immigration policy that allowed me to not only dream the dream, but live the dream after coming here. And in the context of the immigration policy, it turns out that if you have a green card, it's harder for your spouse to join you, whereas it's not with H-1B. So it was a very straightforward trade-off for me. I got good advice from, at that time, an immigration lawyer at Microsoft. That's what I write in the book. But the broader question for me is, the immigration policy of this country is our competitive advantage. We are able to attract people from all over the world to come contribute to our economy and to our companies. But we also are the beacon of hope for those who need it the most. So I think that America is exceptional in what we have created here, and it's something that we should preserve.
Last week, Tim Cook was speaking about the Dreamers, and he said that he doesn't understand why you wouldn't want the most talented and best and brightest. Do you think that Microsoft is missing out on potential the best and brightest by some of these possible immigration policies?
Again, I go back and say, before we talk about any change to our immigration policy, we should recognize that it is already one of the biggest competitive strengths we have. Where else would a story like mine be possible? Nowhere else. So let's start there. So I'm actually both thankful for the immigration policy and also recognize the exceptional policy that we have. Does it have issues? Of course. DACA is a clear example of it. We have been very clear. I think that we should show our humanity. People who are on DACA here are great participants in our economy. In fact, Microsoft has many of them. They are doing a great job in contributing to our economy, and we should make sure that we treat that with care.
Okay, and we can't talk about immigration without mentioning the president. You agreed to serve on his advisory council when he was first elected. What do you or Microsoft get from being on the advisory council with the president? And do you think he listens to what you say?
I've had the chance to meet President Trump twice, once before he was sworn in and once in the White House, and both times with many of my other industry colleagues. And we had conversations about immigration, about infrastructure, the need for the government to invest in digital technology so that the taxpayer money is well spent. And these are conversations that we've had with even previous administrations and mirror the same, in fact, the conversations I have with heads of state all over are very similar. So I think engaging and making sure that we are able to bring technology, which is what we have expertise in, to bear on some of the pressing societal and public sector challenges is an important piece. And at the same time, we'll take principled stance, like we have done on DACA or on immigration, or like we did even with the previous administration around national security and the need for privacy. These are all places where I think we will be guided by the enduring values and principles with any administration.
You're seeing a lot more companies take a stand one way or the other. Do you think that that is something more companies should be doing, is taking a principled stand and saying, this is the side we stand on now? Do you worry about the blowback at all for anything like that?
I think it is important for companies like ours to have a set of principles that govern some of the most important things like privacy and security and or immigration, and take a stance. Ultimately, we also should recognize that we're not the elected officials. We don't have some mandate from the people of this country, and so therefore both the legislative process and the framework of laws that come out should govern us all. But when there isn't that structure in place, it is up to us as companies and leaders to take principled stance.
What would you recommend to update the privacy and data laws so that governments can get what they need, but people feel safe and secure?
I think the real burden here is to make sure that there is due process and there's transparency all around. We first and foremost, we want to protect the privacy of the individual, and that, like in the past, with new medium like the telegraph, and they had to deal with wire fraud, they came up with a set of laws that allowed us to really go after wire fraud without sacrificing the telegraph. I think similarly, we will have to look at what are the mechanisms that governments have? What is the transparency around that, so that there is a set of due process that can be followed, especially with courts, so that people's privacy is protected, because that's paramount.
Do you think lawmakers understand the technology enough to write the laws for it?
I think, like all places, there is a certain amount of education that is required with any new technology. This is not new. Our democratic processes have dealt with technological change in the past. It's true that the pace of change is such that maybe we will need more speed in our legislative process. And for sure, that I think is something we should demand of our representatives. And I think for liberal democracies to continue to make progress, that's going to be crucial.
And this past spring, the WannaCry was a virus, Trojan. Customers were surprised to learn that governments stockpile these cyber weapons and vulnerabilities and don't actually tell you about them. What do you think government should be doing instead of just seeing these vulnerabilities and keeping them to themselves?
I think they should disclose them to the companies so that we can fix these bugs. I think it's a terrible thing to do to stockpile anything, because as we've known that these just can be used in unintended ways by people who can get access to them. So I think the most important thing for us around security is to recognize the shared responsibility we have, especially in times like this where digital technology is so pervasive in all walks of life and infrastructure and parts of our economy, that we all come together to make sure that security and operational security at all times is being improved, and stockpiling of any zero-day issues is not going to be helpful.
Were you surprised when it happened?
I mean, we of course knew of this particular one because it was disclosed, and therefore we had fixed it. And the reality was there was a patch for it on Windows 10. The issue with some of these things is where we need to make sure that everybody is updated and patched, because one weak link in one area can propagate, especially in a connected world like ours. So that's why I think of this as even a shared responsibility of governments, first responders like us as tech companies, and even our customers and partners.
How do you make sure customers do software patches when they need to? That's something that they just kind of get the alert and dismiss it.
I mean, this is where I think there's multiple things that need to happen. One is to say that there's trust in that these updates and patches are in fact, one, keeping them secure. That's a communications challenge. The second thing is that customers are going to evaluate that based on those patches to not only secure them, but make sure that their apps are not broken and they continue to improve. And so this is a place where we've invested a lot. When we think about Windows 10 as a service, this is one of the foundational changes we have made, where now instead of thinking of these as massive upgrades, it's a continuous service that manages to keep you productive and secure.
And so you have Cortana, Apple has Siri, there's the Google Assistant. What has to happen with artificial intelligence and robotics to get it right, and so people won't worry about it taking their jobs?
I mean, first of all, I think AI is a technology that first can help empower people. That's clearly where we are focused on. When I look at Seeing AI, which is an application we just launched for anybody with visual impairment, they can go download this app that uses the latest cutting-edge computer vision technology in our cloud to give anyone the ability to see. And in fact, Angela Mills, who's a colleague of mine, was just telling me about how it's changed her life inside of Microsoft. She can go into our cafeteria, order food using this app with confidence, walk into conference rooms with confidence because she knows she's walking into the right conference room. Or what we've done with our OneNote and Word learning tools. Anyone who has dyslexia can now use AI to be able to read better. The latest release of Windows 10 has this capability called eye gaze, which is something that we learned working with Steve Gleason and the ALS patients, to saying, if all you have is the eye muscle and the gaze, can we help you type? So I think technology, and in particular AI, can in fact bring more empowerment, more inclusiveness. And at the same time, we should be clear-eyed about displacement, clear-eyed about unintended consequences like any other technology, and work both skilling so that people can find the jobs of the future, create new jobs, and lastly, I think have a set of policy decisions that really help people as they go through this change.
And you talked a little about the apps and technologies you're working on that help people. And there's been a big push by Microsoft, it seems, to create tech that is accessible to everybody. And you kind of have a personal involvement in that. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, as I was mentioning with some of the examples, I do believe computers and computing and breakthroughs like AI can absolutely bring more people to fully participate in our society and our economy. I'm personally very passionate about it. I'm informed by even my own son's experience, who's got cerebral palsy. And so that's something that I believe I care deeply about. And I see designers, engineers, and all professionals inside of Microsoft come together with some of these breakthroughs. When we do this annual week of hackathon, and I'm amazed to see what all comes out of these, because people come together, because every family is touched by someone who needs technology so that they can fully participate and they have more of their accessibility needs met. And it's fantastic to see some of the innovation that's coming out. Not only is this innovation helping everybody, but in particular those who need it the most.
Great. And of all the technologies Microsoft is working on, which one is your favorite, you're most passionate about?
You know, it's always hard to pick your favorite, but I've written in the book about three technologies that we are hard at work on, and I think they're all big fundamental shifts. Mixed reality, this is what we started with HoloLens, and now even the Windows mixed reality headsets that are going to come out this holiday. The combination of these are going to make it possible for people to collaborate in ways that are going to be completely life-changing. In fact, Ford is using some of this technology to change the way they bring designers, manufacturing, and salespeople together. So mixed reality, I think, is one. AI, we already talked about how AI is really bringing about all of, whether it's Cortana and how it saves me every day by reminding me of the commitments I've made in email, or learning tools in OneNote, or the Seeing AI application. And in fact, I'm also excited about what quantum computing could mean. We're reaching the limits of physics with the Moore's Law. We do need some fundamental breakthroughs because for all of the progress we've made, there are some unsolved problems. How do you find a catalyst that can absorb the carbon so that we can tackle global warming? It's an unsolved computational problem, and I think in order to be able to solve that problem, we need new computing power, and something like the quantum computer can in fact definitely be an answer.
And what is quantum computing, if you had to explain just 2 minutes or less, if that's possible?
In fact, to help me explain it, I had to get a Fields Medal winner in math and 2 physicists and 1 computer scientist all on stage with me just earlier this week. But if you think about the corn maze, and you said, let's solve that problem of finding a path through a corn maze, and used a classical computer, you essentially brute force your way, which is you start down a path and you hit a block, you retrace, and you start down another path. What if, instead of trying to trace each path at one time, you could trace all of the paths that are in front of you simultaneously in parallel? That's, I think, the intuition, the simple intuition behind quantum. It is the ultimate parallel computer, where it's not about a bit being 1 or 0, but they can be 1 and 0. And that, I think, creates computational power that grows exponentially, not linearly.
Okay. And outside of Microsoft, what tech most excites you?
One of the things that we're working a lot with is a lot of the auto companies that are all working on their own self-driving programs. We have partnered very deeply with many of them, providing some of the core cloud technology. It's amazing to see that cars now are going to probably be the modern day computers on wheels because they're going to have more GPU power than any desktop computer. And so to me, to see that happening broadly, we are working with manufacturing companies that are putting all kinds of sensors and cameras and automating manufacturing processes. So there's not a part of our economy that is now not digital or not software driven. So I'm excited about being able to now have what we do participate and in fact have great feedback cycles with them.
When you look at Apple now, is there anything that you're excited about or anything that you think that they could be doing better or differently?
I'm definitely not going to speak to Apple's innovation agenda, but we are happy to partner with Apple. We are happy to partner with any other company, Facebook and others who are doing innovation, and find places where we can both address customer needs. We are thrilled to have all our software on iOS, and I hope you download them as well.
And in the book, you actually gave a story about some flack you took at a conference for women when you said if you want a raise, you'll get a raise and you shouldn't speak up. And you kind of caught some flack for that. And in a way, you were made to realize that you had a bias you didn't know you have. Can you explain a little how you came to realize that?
Yeah, I mean, the answer I gave in retrospect was completely wrong. In fact, Maria Clave was kind enough to even explain it to me on stage, which is I was taking the question literally and answering based on my experience. That was not the context of the question. The context of the question at a women's conference was, what are you as a CEO doing to help women make progress in their career, understand the bias in the system as opposed to talk about trusting the system. And that's the realization. Coming back even, talking to all of the amazingly accomplished women at Microsoft in my own leadership team, I was able to really get in touch with how we can do a lot more to help women make more progress. Not only do we need to bring more women and ethnic minorities into Microsoft, but then how do you make sure that they're able to do their best work, feel included, make career progress? And so that's definitely a huge agenda for us, and we're continuing to push on it.
I know in your own story you mentioned that you just said whatever your mentor told you. How do you spread that what people might be learning is actually wrong and they need to listen and change their ways a little?
I mean, one of the things that we definitely look to do is to make sure that things like these unconscious bias training are not just checkbox items for people, but are really learning moments. Because in some sense, life's experience is what helps us develop increasing levels of empathy. And empathy is not just a nice thing to have, it's an existential thing for us, because we are in the business of meeting unmet, unarticulated needs of customers. We are not going to be able to do that if we don't first represent our customers across the globe, all the ethnicities, all of the genders. And we need to be then really go after that with an open mind. And so I think that making sure that this is not viewed as some kind of an extracurricular activity, but at the core of our business, but at the same time using this as a teaching moment and a learning moment is how we are approaching it.
Do you worry about any of those biases being pre-programmed into any of the AI apps or other things that are being developed?
I think it's one of the more important issues for us to make sure that things like training data are not biased. And one of the best ways to ensure that what you do, in whether it's the programs, the algorithms, the training regimen, are not biased is to make sure you have diversity of engineers who are designing them. That's one of the great ways we, in fact, use to make sure that we're testing these products for that diversity and lack of bias.
Okay, and finally, you're a CEO of one of the biggest companies in the world. What is your morning routine?
I get up, put on my running shoes, get on a treadmill, and at least get a half hour in. That's the way I get to the energy I need.
Do you answer emails or anything on the treadmill? Do you have a way to start your day to make it the most productive day possible? Or
I try to definitely not do emails on the treadmill, but the best way to start the day, as I said, is the first thing is a cup of coffee and the treadmill.
And what about your evening routine to make sure that your next day will be as productive and you can get everything done that you need?
The last thing I do before going to bed is read my OneNote notes for the meetings next day.